Hello and welcome to This Week in Cleantech. Do not adjust your speakers. I have done you, the listener, and producer Brian Mendez a solid and acquired a legit podcast microphone. Stole it right out of John Engel's abandoned Star trailers. Getting dusty in there, Mike Casey. I'm going to use it each week here on this here 15-minute roundup of the biggest stories in climate and clean energy. Today is Friday, June 20th, 2025. Our guest, Scott Waldman from E&E News, joining us shortly. He's waiting on standby in our other Star trailer. I'm Factor This content director, Paul Gerke. We missed you last week, Mike Casey of Tigercomm. We tried to get one of your cohorts to do the show in your stead, but we all decided it's just not the same without you, so we took the week off. But it's nice to be back on the horn with you.
Thank you, friend. Yeah, I was in Panama, and I checked out the Panama Canal, something you definitely need to do. Put it on your bucket list.
A man, a plan, a canal. I'm familiar.
I got to tell you, Clarion is really mad. Mendez was playing drums at 3 o'clock in the morning in your Star trailer, partying while I was gone. People are pissed, dude.
It was actually the N64 game DK Conga. They were bongos he was playing. Fun fact.
Hey, we're going to try to mix a bit of gallows humor, because why not, when the National Village Idiots Convention, known as Congress, is wrecking America's economic future. But also, we're going to end on a somber note. I just want to flag listeners who need two shout-outs, by the way. Randy Dettinger from Rosen said, I love watching you on This Week in Cleantech, and Bailey Lohman from Terra Pro Solutions says, you guys say out loud what most of us think in our heads.
I try to reserve the saying out loud part to you, Mike. I just snicker and nod politely and save my chances for the cutting remarks where I can find them. We do appreciate the listeners, though, who reach out to us and let us know that they get something from these episodes. That's an integral part of what we're doing for the small community of us Cleantechers. So if you want to be a part of the show, nominate stories, whatever, email Mike, email me. Email address is paul.gerke@clarionevents.com. We do have 5 stories to get to this week. Let's get into it, Mike. What is story number 1?
Our first story is by you, Paul Gerke.
No kidding.
And you wrote the winners and losers of the Senate's take on the one big, beautiful bill. Okay, Mr. Gerke, what do you have to say for yourself?
Defend your own writing. Yeah, no, I appreciate you guys selecting this one, because a lot of folks wrote up, the Senate's changes to the one big, beautiful bill act, or ABBA, as I like to say. But I tried to be as concise as possible and distill it into even language that Trump supporters could understand. Winners and losers. Of course, it's not that black and white. The gist is that the Republican bill and the Senate draft don't look too different. It's a bit of a mixed bag. Amongst the highlights, though, Mike, tax credit transferability is back, baby. Resurrected from the dead. That's a big deal. We've talked about the industries that have sprung up around tax credit transferability. Good to see that the Senate recognizes that. They also recognize battery energy storage. Those tax credits through 2033 now, as opposed to in the House bill where they were repealed along with the other clean energy technologies with a much shorter runway. The plan is to keep tax credits for hydro, geothermal, and nuclear projects all the way to 2033. Then phase them out through 2036. Solar and wind are getting the short end of the stick here. Those tax credits runways are still really shortened by the Senate draft. Offshore going to be really tough facing the tax credit issues and the phase outs there. The EV credit, one more thing, Mike, that's $7,500. They want to get rid of that by the end of the year, so a little less than 6 months. That seems pretty dead in the water. If you did have a chance to read it, Mike, what did you think? Any thoughts on the Senate bill? Oh, hey, by the way, Theo says hi. He's just chilling over here. Hey, buddy,
well, first, I think you did. I will say, I think you did a really good summary piece.
Thanks, man.
Straight up. There's a lot of uncertainty here. Foreign entity of concern rules begin in 2026 that limits Chinese components, but the definitions, the enforcements remain unclear. Advocates for our sector say this bill threatens U.S. manufacturing and also brings investment uncertainty. It raises electricity bills. It also jeopardizes jobs, grid reliability, and American competitiveness in clean tech.
Yeah,
and
not like any of those things are important, Mike. Now,
So I've said it before. I'll say it again. We are watching in real time as politicians rented by the fracking lobby dismantles America's economic future. Never mind the fact that China is doubling down on EVs, clean energy, and the technologies tomorrow. I know because I was in Panama and I saw one Chinese EV after another fly past us. But you know, John, the new ethic is if we pretend something isn't happening, then it's not happening, right?
Yeah, like how you pretend I'm still John. Story number 2. Our second story is by former This Week in Cleantech guest. It's going to be a tough edit for Brian Mendez because we're just going to have to keep the snickering all the way through. Shannon Osaka from the Washington Post titled, "The U.S. invested in EV battery plants. Now they may be stranded." What's going on with the EV battery plants, Mike?
More beneficence for the economic future of America brought to us by the National Village Idiots Convention, otherwise known as Congress. Since the passage of the IRA, the investment in domestic battery production has exploded. But a new report shows how this new EV supply chain is in jeopardy. EV sales have slowed in no small measure because people who want to hate on EVs are making it hard to make this transition to where we need to go. And Republicans in Congress are looking to cut the IRA tax credits for consumers and domestic manufacturers. They also want to put a penalty on EVs under the idea that that EV owners don't put into the fund that keeps our roads going. Of course, they want to triple the penalty for it. So it's just, what do you say? The double whammy is that for a wave of new battery factories across the country and in the battery belt, fewer customers and less incentives for the customers who remain to buy American-made. Meanwhile, China has artificially overbuilt its battery capacity and can flood the international market. I do not think that was done by accident, Paul Gerke.
No, but you know what, Mike? I've seen this argument on the solar side of things. If China wants to give us at below market prices technologies that will enable our clean energy future, I think we'd be stupid to say no thank you. We'd like to build it ourselves more expensively and on a much longer time scale. So with that out of the way, I just want to note that tariffs too have a huge a hand on the scale, a thumb on the other end, if you will, because we're talking about raw material imports that just keep going up and up and up, and there's so much uncertainty in this space that a lot of these places that we're talking about battery belt, you mentioned in particular, the IRA money that was being promised to these places is either being pulled back or is tenuous at best, and then you have the tariffs jacking up the prices of all of their exports and messing with their imports and messing with their bottom lines. It's no surprise that $6 billion in planned battery projects got canceled just in the first quarter of this year. It's going to be a real challenge for U.S. factories to compete with foreign supply. This is one of those sticky things, Mike, where when you say, well, we'll just build it in America. Well, yeah, we can eventually, and maybe at a competitive price, but no time soon for all of the reasons outlined above. Mike, story number 3.
I will do that. And as someone who's a little more trade hockey than you, I will also note the idea that it stands to reason that the Chinese are doing what Uber did. They keep prices low to get everybody used to their service, and then ding.
That's what all the AI services are doing right now too, Mike. They give you the first hit of crack for free, and then once you give up all your mental capacities and you need to ask Grok how to wipe your butt, all of a sudden you're completely dependent on the machines. I'm not doing it, Mike. I just make them do my images for cool political cartoons in my articles. I like to save the thinking for myself.
Third story, This Week in Cleantech, former guest Alexander Hoffman, who writes in The Atlantic, energy abundance won't fix electricity bills. What do you think, Paul?
Do you follow Alex on LinkedIn?
I do.
It's like every day he's like, oh, I've got this new article in The Atlantic, I've got this new article in The Economist, does he just sit at home and pump this stuff out and then just watch all the publications come in? He's a prolific guy these days.
Very prolific.
Yeah, we had him on the show a couple weeks ago. You should go listen to that episode if you hadn't had the chance to. Just quickly on this article in The Atlantic, U.S. efficiency standards have helped lower utility bills. Modern appliances use less power, they use less water. The Biden administration pushed new efficiency rules, but as you may have heard, Trump is rolling back dozens of those standards. The Trump administration seems to prefer, instead of increasing energy production to lower prices, increasing energy production to lower prices, which makes those efficiency rules unnecessary. And we know how much he likes his shower heads that are full flow. Even with more production, prices could still rise due to natural gas imports and demand in AI and data centers and all of the above. Mike, what did you think?
Never has an administration spent so much time in America's showers and toilets. Federal researchers say electricity rates could jump 13% nationwide and up to 26% in some regions by 2025. So much for our fight against inflation. Dropping efficiency standards could backfire because any money saved on cheaper appliances could be lost to higher electricity bills. The bottom line, more energy production does not mean cheaper bills. you have to factor in demand. Paul, our fourth story.
Our fourth story, Jim Giles. I'm sorry, Jim. From Trellis, titled "What a Pioneering Project Means for Ocean Carbon Removal." We don't talk about this subject too often, Mike, but I'm excited to learn a little bit about it.
It's cool. British Airways, Stripe, and Shopify have just bought the first verified carbon credits from ocean carbon removal. So this project is run by Planetary out of Halifax, Canada. It used cheap and abundant alkaline minerals to change seawater chemistry, capturing carbon dioxide from the air and locking it away as stable bicarbonate ions for thousands of years. They have removed 625 metric tons of carbon dioxide across 3 buyers so far, but the long-term potential is huge. Studies show that if this tech scaled globally near coastlines, it could help remove gigatons of carbon pollution annually. Paul.
It sounds great. It sounds pricey too. Average of about $335 per metric ton right now, mostly due to the cost of monitoring and verification. Like anything, though, the more you do it, the cheaper it gets. And I think you and I are of the mind, at least, Mike, that there shouldn't be a price on a clean future, and that it should just be something we're doing regardless. Planetary uses detailed modeling and real-world samples. They subtract any uncertainty from the final credit count. Sounds promising, Mike. Would love to be talking about it again soon.
Yep. Our last story is written by Scott Waldman, who is our first-timer on This Week in Cleantech. He's from E&E News, and he wrote how Trump's assault on science is blinding America to climate change. Scott Waldman, welcome very much to the show. We're really excited to have you. Hey, if people haven't read the story, which we want them to do, what is the big takeaway?
The big takeaway is that, for years, Trump has been lying and saying wrong things about climate change, obviously, and now he's trying to just basically detonate and dismantle all the federal research that's proved him wrong. So we're talking billions of dollars of cuts in research to NOAA and NASA. They want to literally take satellites and other space instruments already in orbit right now and shut them down. These, of course, cost billions of dollars in their life cycle to get into orbit in the first place, and decades of work from idea to actually, spinning around the planet. So it's hard to make an argument for that. Really, the contracts to maintain them are just a few million a year. So that's just a tip of the iceberg. They've got a whole golden age of science executive order that they also came down, basically prevents science from being used throughout the federal government. Stuff that the industry for years, the oil and gas industry in particular, has gone after.
That's where I was headed, Scott, because it seems to me that the straightest path between two dots here is that this is largely driven by fossil fuel lobbying interests. We all remember Donnie when he told the fossil fuel lobbyists that someone just give me $1 billion and you can do whatever you want. I mean, like literally that was something he said, something we published, and now it seems like that's what's happening. Is there any reason to think that there's any logic behind this other than appeasing the highest bidder?
No, it's hard to see. I mean, why would you want to? When you talk about the federal government, you're talking about this. This is not even, a 0.1% of a fraction of spending. It's really a few $1 billion. We're spending that pretty quickly as we head towards Iran right now with an uncertain future over there. These satellites too, and some of this research give us a window into carbon emissions on the planet. They show us where methane is leaking, which is also helpful for companies to have that information to plug leaks that are notable. I mean, the list goes on and on. Of course, most notably, these cuts affect weather satellites. So really, the oil and gas industry is getting everything it's wanted for decades right now, and it's really unclear what the benefit is to the American population. Do regulations cut on an oil well here and there really equal savings at the pump? I mean, I think that's savings that you might see when you fill up your tank of gas. I think that's also up for question.
Scott, who was the constituency for this science that's now going to not have access to this science?
That's a great question. It's like literally the American economy. I mean, when you talk about a satellite that's measuring climate change on Earth, it's also producing information that's helpful for the 3 and 7 day, 10-day forecast. You're talking about God knows how many businesses and what percentage of the economy plan, based on the weather. Obviously, we're about to have a tremendous heat wave here. Businesses have been planning for that for the last few weeks. You've got, they're moving around natural gas to where it's needed, preparing to ramp up peaker plants, of course, in a lot of major cities. So that's just one small example. I mean, this stuff ripples throughout society. When you do NOAA research, you're looking at fisheries, which are worth billions of dollars to the American economy, tons and tons of jobs. So if you start messing with that research, thinking that you can cut off such a wide swath of it, you're going to have immediate ripple effects.
Scott, this was part of my beef with Doge when they started that up. Once you start unplugging stuff from the walls, it's really hard to get those things plugged back in. So like even in an optimistic future, 4 years from now, with a different administration that has different priorities, that recognizes the urgency of the climate situation, that administration is not going to have enough time to pass legally the amount of things that have been unplugged in just the last 4 or 5 months by the Trump administration, which paints a really dark, like, fall of capitalism future in my mind. And it doesn't sound like it's a great world that I'm bringing a daughter into, and it's terrifying in many ways. Is there any silver lining in this, Scott? Is there someone that can stand up to this administration and say, hey, wait a second, this is bigger than fossil fuel lobby interests? Or are we just sort of forlorn to the fate that the House and the Senate is in pocket with whatever Trump decides when he wakes up in the morning?
Well, I mean, I'm of two minds. You've already commented on Congress and your thoughts there. They're the greatest backstop for this. And, there is a constituency, even among the Republicans, to preserve some of this research. Whether or not they'll actually speak out and potentially get crosswise with the administration remains to be seen. They certainly didn't do that for some of the IRA credits that are going to literally cut jobs in their own districts. But other countries are doing this research, probably not as comprehensively as us, but the Europeans have some pretty good monitoring of CO2 levels and things like that there are important data streams that really don't want to see interrupted, which is what you're talking about. If after this administration, whatever the next administration is that believes in science, they're going to have to hire all these people back. I mean, that's thousands of researchers that are going to be gone, who are also going to be really, uncertain about getting back into federal employment, wondering, is this just going to happen every time, there's a new team in the White House? So it can be rebuilt, but you're right, it's not going to be rebuilt in a single administration. It's going to take many years, and we can only hope that some other countries will step up and increase their spending as this gets cut.
The next administration that believes in science is a pretty dark way to leave it, Scott.
Scott, this is a great story. Thanks for that great reporting. Paul, we're about out of time. Before we wrap, we need to go to our Cleantecher of the Week, but I want to warn our listeners and viewers, this is a different type of acknowledgement, and a sad and sobering one at that.
Yeah, the Cleantecher of the Week is not just for the folks out there getting solar mohawks. We want to pay homage to people that are making a big difference in the industry, and some of those champions were attacked in their own homes this past week. Slain and wounded Minnesota legislators and their families, Representative Melissa Hortman and Senator John Hoffman. Our thoughts are with them. Senator Hortman, or Representative Hortman, rather, in particular, a key legislative leader who shepherded Minnesota's landmark climate and clean energy bill back in 2023. By passing that legislation, Minnesota became the 22nd state in the nation to commit to 100% carbon-free electricity, requiring the state's IOUs to be fully carbon-free by 2040. Representative Hortman was fighting the good fight, Mike.
Yep. Everyone on this show, Paul, myself, Brian, Claire, and Alex, we want to extend our condolences to these families. And it goes without saying that this type of political violence is totally unacceptable. I'm saying this as a political centrist, an independent, and a gun owner, but this sort of violent, aggressive rhetoric that's come into fashion among many in the ideology over a crowd, it needs to stop. This is insane, and we have agency here in whether or not we continue this national descent into collective madness. If we are willing to let go of the magical thinking and actually face problems, we can do big things in this country, but we've got to decide, each one of us as Americans, whether or not this is the future we want.
Cheers to that, Mike. Well said. And thanks to Scott for joining us on this episode of This Week in Clean Tech. It's a shame we can't just have 15 minutes to goof around about clean energy stories. We gotta put our foot down on all this stuff, Mike. We gotta get all serious, and we need to carry the torch for this industry. And we're happy to do that in between all the bad dad jokes. So if you want to continue this conversation, subscribe, leave some feedback, share stories, as we mentioned earlier. You'll see all the articles we discussed this week, including Scott's, linked with a little description on the post on Factor This.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, listeners. We will talk to you next week.